This is the 5-minute sample for King's Killer, The Kings of Men MC, Book 1, by Ki Brightly and M.D. Gregory. This is my 18th audiobook, and it was released on October 25th, 2019. This is the first of many solid Motorcycle Club books I've had the fortune of producing, with my very kind rights holder and author friend, Kyle Brosius. You're going to be seeing quite a few of these books pop up for a long while. This first book wasn't very warmly received, however. Let's start at the beginning. I was honestly surprised to be picked to do this series at all. As a narrator, you kind of just throw your auditions out there to see what sticks, and the hurly-burly tough guy biker gang voice was one that I never really thought I would be able to do, let alone get to do. And seeing how that was one of the main characters, I guess that apprehension shone through, because listeners didn't really warm up to that. I tried to be better about it in later titles, but my voice really isn't that husky, sexy, erotic, tough guy voice that people are used to, so I don't blame them. Despite that somewhat middling reception, the story of King's Killer itself is one of my favorites of this series. Perhaps I'll do a full ranking of the Kings of Men MC series at some point in time, but this one ranks up there, regardless of whether I choose to do that or not. It's a bit of a riff on the Beauty and the Beast King Kong trope, like the beauty soothing the savage beast and getting him to open up. It's different from the other audiobooks I've done in the past, because this guy is a real stone-cold killer, and he murders people without prejudice. If his leader, King, tells him to kill somebody, then he'll just go ahead and do it. And listeners of this book are presented with that captivating moral dilemma of having to reconcile their hopeful feelings towards Reaper and Grant, the two men, getting together, with the fact that they're committing illegal acts. And this theme carries forward into the other books, and is, in my opinion, a literary focus with a lot of potential for critical thought. It was also smart of the authors to give the two men the backstory of having grown up in foster homes together, because that opens the avenue for Grant to connect with Reaper in ways that Reaper wouldn't have been able to access with anyone else. I'm a real sucker for stories that pull off that we were meant to be together trope. It can come off as cheesy in a lot of stories, but what do I always go on about, right? Well-established backstories, you know? If you can set that stage, then you can make your play. If you can set that stage correctly, then you can go into your story being set up for success. And you can move towards that success without falling into the cliches that a lot of other stories that don't set the stage well fall into. And all that being said, I hope you enjoy this 5-minute sample. Ki left the yard, shoulders stiff and back straight. It was a massive shadow in the night, one that scared me and made me want to stand and stare after him, all at the same time. I rounded on Aaron. He took out a pack of cigarettes and tapped one out. The flame from his lighter flared bright in the dark and lit his face a hellish red for a few seconds. Tommy Rhodes is dead in my kitchen, and no one cares that he fixed a flat tire for me last week because he stole some money. That was just how things worked in the club, though. It didn't matter that he was someone I'd shared Thanksgiving with, or that he'd helped me move into my house. He betrayed the club, which really meant he'd turned his back on Aaron, and now he was guts and gore on my kitchen floor. The fact that Tommy was dead struck me as both insane and perfectly sensible at the same time, and that pissed me off. I always had to keep two realities going on in my mind. The normal one at Walnut Creek Hospital where I worked was the bright, shiny side of a coin. There, everyone followed the law, and cared so much about the rules of the world that we couldn't even give out so much as a patient's name without 5 signed forms. Then there was this other side of the coin, one stuck in some mud. Here, my brother's word was law, and people could die at the drop of a hat. Sometimes it made me feel dizzy if I thought about it too long, but tonight I was furious instead. You involved me. You have to quit doing this. Either I'm part of the Kings or I'm not. I ride a bike. Why not just let me join and have it over with? Aaron chuckled. You mean that pretty red Indian I gave you as a college graduation present? I haven't had to do so much as change the oil more than once a year. How many miles have you put on it? My face flushed hot, and I was happy for the shadows. That doesn't matter, and you know it. The Kings aren't about the bikes. You're right, they're not. You're still banned from being a prospect. Tim Wilson, I refuse to call him Undertaker, strolled out of my back door. I'd known him long enough that his profile let me identify him. I knew every officer in the club, and here I was, forever stuck in this awkward umbrella where I could get pulled into the shit, but never escape into the sanity of the real world. I wasn't sure which I would prefer if I had to choose, but the limbo drove me nuts. I clenched my hands into fists. You can't keep doing this to me. I'm not doing anything. I already did it. No. Aaron took a deep drag of his cigarette, and the coal at the end burned neon red. Smoke stung my nose. I loved Aaron, and this was maybe the one rule of his I hated. He had a lot of rules. I wasn't allowed to go to bars after midnight unless he was there. I followed that one without question. I wasn't allowed to go out jogging late at night. He was afraid someone would snatch me and use me to get to the Kings. Fuck. I even allowed myself to be emasculated into his arbitrary curfew, and listened as if I was his little sister instead of his fucking brother. But the fact that there was a dead guy in my kitchen, and I was still not allowed to have an opinion on anything, or help get it out of there, pissed me off. Everything boiled hotter in me until my head felt like it was going to pop off my body. I did the unthinkable and shoved Aaron, hard. He grunted in surprise and stumbled backward. Immediately I felt awful about it. I never wanted to do anything to hurt him, but I didn't have long to feel that way, because he dropped his cigarette and shoved me back. He would never do anything to really hurt me, but I tripped and landed on my ass. The jolt to my spine ached, especially after working all day. I shouldn't have ended up on the ground. God damn it, he snarled. Are you okay? I'm fine, I grumped. He offered a hand, but I smacked it away and got to my feet, more embarrassed than anything. I brushed off my ass, even though I didn't think there was anything stuck to it. Seconds ticked by, and he was so stiff, you'd think he was a statue. I was getting around to thinking I should apologize by the time he yanked me close by the arm to give me a quick hug. I love you, so no. You stay safe, he grumped at me, even though he held me too tight. He kissed my cheek, carrying the strong scent of rum with him, gave me one last back pat, and then stormed off. About halfway across the yard, he met Tim, who had mysteriously found something interesting to look at in the night sky, far enough from me that I couldn't hear what they discussed in quiet tones. And just like that, I was shut out again. Right as rain, Mr. President, Tim said loudly after a minute. He stepped back and gave him a goofy salute. Aaron laughed, a happy, gravelly sound. He disappeared around the side of my house toward the front, and his bike revved to life not long later. Tim made his way to me casually, like he might be giving me time to run away if I wanted. I could never tell with him. Worse than Kai, he was a total wild card. 1 second congenial and friendly, the next stone-faced and vicious. He'd never been mean with me, though, just vacant sometimes. A link to purchase King's Killer is in the description below. This title was a royalty share production, so I make 20% from any purchases. Thanks for listening!